I dedicate this movie review to a very, very wonderful person who's very, very close to our beloved actor, the oh great and mighty Liam Neeson, who had passed away way too soon from 10 years ago. Well, anyway, hi ladies and dudes. This is Rebecca Lynn Barkley, aka Boobop187. This is my review for today. And today's review, ladies and dudes, this is going to be my very first movie review that featured a documentary. And yes, ladies and dudes, I will admit, this is one of the most saddest stories I have ever seen in my whole entire life. This is so darn sad. And it will break your heart. Big time. So for my next movie review is The Wildest Dream, Conquest of Everest. This is a very good documentary film I have ever watched. And when I first discovered this movie, I remember back at September, I checked out another documentary called The Last Lions, and they did show this trailer of this film. And I found out that the oh great and mighty Liam Neeson is going to do the narration for this story. So I decided to go back to the library and get it a couple of weeks later, and I start to enjoy it. This is a really, really sad story. Well, if you want to know what it is, I'll tell you anyway. So, without further ado, ladies and dudes, let's head on to my next movie review of The Wildest Dream, Conquest to Everest. So yeah, the story is all about is there is this British dude named George Mallory. He had the most wildest dream of his life to go somewhere around Asia, I believe, or somewhere around China, I don't know. He wants to go on this big giant mountain that he had never seen before called Mount Everest. And it's over 29,000 feet high, and it became one of the most highest mountains of all time. And he really, really wants to be on top. It did happen on 1924. But sadly, that poor man died while he was trying to climb back down on Mount Everest. While he finally made it on top. That's what I thought. Until 75 years later, a dude named Common, he was the one who discovered the body, and he noticed of all the supplies that was left behind in George Mallory's, one of his remains in his body, he found out that the picture of George Mallory's wife, Ruth, is missing. And they believe that George did put Ruth's picture on the top of the mountain. I think that's what happened. Maybe. We don't know for sure. But yes, Common and his partner, Leo, had decided to go back to Mount Everest and try to get to the second top of the mountain. And they gotta do it in their own bodies and without the ladder thing. And that's my whole entire plot of the story of the wildest dream, Conquest to Everest. And I guess everybody wants to know is what the heck do I think about this documentary of one of the most unknown stories of all time. Something I never discovered in world history. Well, to tell you the truth is, ladies and dudes, I frickin' love it. This is one of the best documentary films I have ever watched. And it was so darn sad. This is one of the most saddest storylines I have ever seen in my whole entire life. A story about a man who climbs on a mountain and he never came home. He just died there, sadly to say. Yeah, the storyline is pretty darn good, and we already know that the characters are so darn real in real life. I freaking love the score for it, and I love the voice work from only 4 out of 5 good people that I remember. There's only one dude I don't know of. I love the sceneries and highlight moments from the later on timeline in our world, and get to know about George Mallory's storyline, which is pretty darn sad. So anyway, let's go on to the strongest points and the weakest points of The Wildest Dream, Conquest to Everest. I will say for the strongest points for this documentary is a tie. Just a tie between George Mallory's storyline and the narration from the great and mighty Liam Neeson. Let's go on to George Mallory's storyline first. I was so darn blown away with his storyline. I mean, it was so darn unbelievable. I mean, a guy who was 38 years old, he wants to go to Mount Everest and try to reach on top. And he had a lot of ups and down times with it back at 1924. And yes, he did have a great relationship with his wife, Ruth. And they had a really strong bond together as husband and wife. And they really did miss each other very, very much. Every time they wrote each other letters. It was just a mind-blowing story, and it was so darn true. So yeah, that was the first strongest point for this movie. And my second strongest point of the movie is the narration from the great and mighty Liam Neeson. He did a fantastic job of telling both of these amazing storylines from these two mountain climbers who had the very same goal of reaching to the top of Mount Everest. Oh, I love the great and mighty Liam Neeson. He had a fantastic voice. His voice fits so darn perfectly for this wonderful documentary. And yes, ladies and dudes, there are some interesting fun facts you should know about this documentary. The great and mighty Liam Neeson only worked with 3 people and 3 people only. Ray Fiennes, Natasha Richardson, and Alan Scary Rickman. And he worked together with all 3 of them in their own separate movies. I know Natasha Richardson worked with Liam Neeson in Nail, and there was another one that they both worked on, but I forgot what it was. It's the time before they got married. And Liam Neeson did work with Ray Fiennes 3 times for the Chandler's List and Clash and Wrath of the Titans. I will do the Clash of the Titans very soon in the near future. I'm not sure when. And also, Liam Neeson did work with Alan Scare Rickman in 2 films. One is Love Actually, and the other is Michael Collins. Yeah, that's really cool. Liam Neeson worked with 3 familiar people in all these separate films. And they worked together in this one. But sadly, for the final time, for the 2 actors who had passed away way too soon, there's one of them who did pass away from 10 years ago. And it's a sad shame as well. So yeah, those are the greatest, strongest points I found for this film. I only found one main weak point of the film I did find. And, well, it's... Alright, I'll go ahead and tell you what's my main weak point for this documentary. And the saddest part is, this is what I really don't like. Every time I watch a movie that featured Alan Rickman, he had a very short role in it. And for this film, he does have a short role. And he had only 3 dialogues in this movie. Just 3 frickin' dialogues. What is wrong with you people? Can't you please give Alan Scary Rickman a little bit more of a role for this documentary? What is wrong with you people? How dare you disrespect one of the most greatest underrated actors of all time? Shame on you people. Shame on you. And Alan Rickman's character is doing the voice of one of George Mallory's supporters. His name is Nail something. I forgot his last name. But yeah, that really does suck. I feel bad for Alan Rickman for having a short role for this documentary movie. And he had 3 dialogues for it. This sucks. Big time. I wish there's something I could say about character-wise. All of them are really good in so many ways, and since all these characters were based by real-life people. And yeah, before I can wrap up and tell you about my final thoughts about the film, I will tell you the truth right now about this very important film. And it's about this very important person that the great and mighty Liam Neeson really cared about. And somebody who's very, very close to him. And that is his beautiful wife, Natasha Richardson. Sadly, this is her last and final film that she ever worked on. And we just listened to her voice when she is playing George Mallory's wife, Ruth. She had a very, very lovely voice, and I think her voice fits so perfectly for Ruth. It's hard for me to say about all this. And this is one of the most heartbreaking things of all. This is the final time we're going to hear a very lovely voice from a very great actress who is the wife of the great mighty Liam Neeson. And as you may know, I think it was somewhere around March or something where she did die on a ski accident. And she was in her 40s back then. And the great and mighty Liam Neeson was very heartbroken about it. I know it's hard to lose a wife who is so darn beautiful, graceful, and she has a very good, fantastic voice and a very, very lovely face. So, I tribute this movie review for her, and I want to do the rightful thing for the great and mighty Liam Neeson and his family. That's all I could say about that. I wonder if Michael and Daniel have ever watched this film and listened to their mother's voice for the very last time. So, here's my final thoughts of the film. Overall, The Wildest Dream, The Conquest to Everest, is one of the most saddest documentaries I have ever seen in my whole entire life. The storyline is good, the characters are real, has a very nice score, very nice, great sceneries and highlight moments of this, and great voice acting, and all the above. And so, I decided to give this film a 9.5 out of 10. This is a very, very sad story that we will never forget in film history, for documentary wise. And that is it for now. I'll see you guys later, and sayonara.